Chapter 8. Time passed and Madison settled even more comfortably into the bosom of the family. Happy as he had been all those years in America with Professor Holdsworth, life was now so much fuller, more interesting, fun. In the long summer holidays he had spent almost all his time with Harry, some of it in talk, much of it in playing games. Sometimes in the evening, after supper, Harry's parents would join them in playing Monopoly. That was Madison's favourite. True, he needed help in handling the awkward, fluttery paper money, but the shaking of the dice and the movement by beak of his chosen symbol presented no problems. He did not care for the top hat, car, iron, dog, or boot, but he always liked to play with the battleship, which is why, no doubt, he liked the game. He almost always won. The others might go to jail, move directly to jail, not pass and go, not collecting £2,200, but Madison was seldom behind bars. The chance and community chest cards he drew were usually good ones, but above all he was very particular about the properties he bought. "Why do you always go for the red set, Madison?" Mrs. Holdsworth asked one evening. As so often, Madison already had hotels up while the others had only built a modest house or two. "Just kind of fancy it, ma'am." "The colour, you mean?" "No, maybe I guess it's on account of Trafalgar Square." "What's special about Trafalgar Square?" Harry asked. "Why, the memory of Lord Nelson, Harry boy, your greatest sailor. George was a great admirer of Lord Nelson, had a whole shelf full of biographies of him, and we parrots have always been keen on seafaring men." "I find myself very short of cash," said Mr. Holdsworth, landing on the Strand. "You can have my railway stations if you like." There was a pleading note in his voice. "You're going to have to sell 'em, sir," said Madison firmly, "in order to realise the necessary capital. I'd be obliged if you would pay me £1,100. £1,100, said Mr. Holdsworth. "Why, that's highway robbery." "Talking of robberies," said Harry's mum, "did you know there have been several break-ins in the neighbourhood recently? Daytime ones, I mean." "I bet they were all at houses where there's no dog. A dog's the best insurance you can get against housebreakers. No wonder no one would try to rob this house if they heard ours barking." "Well, that's what worries me a bit. He never seems to bark nowadays. I don't think he'd frighten off any burglar. Oh dear, I've got to go to jail again." "Mad would scare them off, wouldn't you, Mad?" said Harry. "You betcha, Harry boy." Madison put on his Humphrey Bogart voice. "Turn around real slow, mister. You move too fast, I'll plug you right between the eyes. Just don't tempt me, baby." "That ought to fix them," Harry said, throwing the dice and landing to his dismay in the middle of Trafalgar Square. "And that," said Madison, "ought to fix you." For the first few times that Madison was left on his own in the house after that conversation, the thought of burglars did occur to him, but then he forgot all about it. A couple of weeks went by. The Christmas term had started and Harry was back at school. Mr. Holdsworth was working and Mrs. Holdsworth was going out doing some shopping. "Anything you need before I go, Madison?" she called. Madison looked up from the Daily Mail, which lay on the kitchen table. He was reading Dermot Purgavy's America. "You remember we're fresh out of lemons," he said. "Gonna need juice and grated peel for tonight's transparent pie." "Yes, I've got them on my list. Anything special you want? For yourself, I mean." "Never say no to a chocolate bar," said Madison, who was extremely fond of ice cream. "Oh, no, never say no to a choc bar," said Madison, who was extremely fond of ice cream. "All right, I'm off then. I'm taking the dog to give him some exercise. See you soon." "Sure thing," said Madison. But it wasn't. A quarter of an hour passed. Everything was quiet, and in the warm kitchen Madison dozed on the Daily Mail. Suddenly there was a noise. It sounded as though it came from the sitting room. It was quite a light tinkling noise, the sound of something breakable breaking. "Now what's that lame-brained kitty-cat up to?" said Madison, hopping off the kitchen table and making his way down the passage. "Smash one of Mrs. H's little ornaments, if I ain't mistaken." But he was mistaken, as he found when he waddled into the sitting room. It was not an ornament that was broken, it was a window, and climbing over the windowsill was not the cat, but a man. He was not a big, ugly roughneck, as a burglar ought to be, with a striped jersey and a black mask and a sack-marked swag. He was small and neat, and dressed in a suit, and carried a leather grip. Madison hid behind the door. There's the man climbing in through the window in his suit.
He's in disguise.
Well, yeah, I guess you could say that. Or anyway. Madison, moving quickly and silently on rubber-soled shoes, the burglar reached out and closed it with a gloved hand. Madison stood revealed. Bogey would never have been caught like this, he thought. Me and my big mouth. He opened it. Who's a naughty boy then? He said in the squawky tones of an ordinary talking parrot. The burglar did not find it necessary to answer this question. Instead, he opened the zip fastener of his grip and, after one quick practiced look about the room, made straight for an old heavy sideboard in the drawers and cupboards of which Mrs. Holdsworth kept all the silver. Knives, spoons and forks, cream jugs and sauce boats, candlesticks, coasters and salvers, and one especially handsome chased silver rose bowl. Madison had seen them all when they were brought out for cleaning, and he knew they were much the most valuable things in the house. "Stop, thief!" he said loudly. The burglar turned from examining the hallmark on the rose bowl. "Shut up, you stupid bird," he said, "or do you want me to shut you up?" Madison did not find it necessary to reply to this question. Instead, he fluttered up to the sill of the open window and took a deep breath. "Help! Burglars! Thieves! Robbers! Padfoots! Cut purses! Fire! Murder! Police! Help!" Madison shouted at the top of his voice. Behind him he heard a clatter as the burglar dropped the rose bowl and then felt hands grasp him. Into the blackness of the leather grip he went. Zip went the fastener. Bump went his head against the windowsill as the burglar fled, and Madison, for once in his life, was reduced to silence.